Welcome once again to another episode of the Comm-UNITY podcast brought to you by South Africa. At South Africa, we are passionate about local philanthropy, and we use this podcast and several other opportunities to be able to contribute to the narrative shaping around local philanthropy in Uganda. As you will recall, the season 8 of the Comm-UNITY podcast that we are running focuses on Rotary in Uganda, the power of collective giving that comes from Rotary in Uganda. Our guest today is a very seasoned Rotarian, former Rotaractor, and a very good friend of mine, Xavier Sentamu, who is a past district governor of the District 9211 and also a member of the Rotary Club of Kiwatule. You're most welcome, Governor Xavier.
Thank you, Malcolm.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
We shall get right into it and ask you to share with us a personal story about generosity and how generosity has been manifested in your life and how it has become important to you.
Thank you, Malcolm, and thank you for hosting me here. It's been quite a while.
Yes.
Generosity, and I'm so glad when you shared with me the need for us to come and share about this topic. Generosity to me is everything about caring and indeed looking out for each other. I think this is a lot to do with our African culture, that by nature we look out for each other. I remember growing up in my little village in Namagoma. Every other elder person on the community, yes. If it's a lady, is a mother, yes. If it's a gentleman, is a father,
yes.
And you would not do anything wrong. Neither would you celebrate a special day, Christmas, Easter, and so on, and you do not look out whether your neighbor or another person on the village, yes. has something to partake, yes. during that time,
yes.
And so we grew up with that in mind. Of course, going back to church,
yes,
we've been trained in a way that you have to go with something, yes. for offertory.
Yes.
It's biblical, or probably it's part of our religious culture, but you can imagine God has everything, but yet we still have to contribute something. And why you contribute? Because you're thinking that you are propelling God's work, and therefore you are helping that go on.
Yes.
So to me, that came right from the foundation, as from my parents, and it's something that we grew up doing. Fast forward, I think in primary, I remember very well, again in Nabingo, that's where I did my primary school. Yes. Towards P7 sitting, and there was this one friend of ours. We had been classmates. We have been doing, you know, in school when you are doing competition.
Yes.
He's either better than you in mathematics, or you are better than him, and you don't want to be beaten.
Yes.
And then coming towards exams, they tell us he's not going to sit for exams. Why? Because he hadn't finished school fees.
Wow.
I mean, some of us, we did not imagine you do not pay school fees when it was automatic. Your parents have paid school fees and you're there.
In school.
But that was something strange, something that struck us. And so what we did is that within the school, the students' community,
yes.
the peers, the people in P7, we started contributing very little, 10 shillings here, 100 shillings.
Yes.
Of course, you ask for your parents and you just sacrifice the kabalagala
for
a day. And we start exams with our friend.
Yes.
So for me, it starts from there.
Yes, yes.
And then I of course ran through life. We did our P7 during the hard times. I remember we shared a story on Mitiana Road.
Yes.
And you are surprised. But when I go to university, finish university, and then I am teaching at the university, I get in touch with a friend who starts introducing this whole aspect of Rotaract to me.
Yes.
And initially I thought, okay, these guys just go over a weekend or on a Friday evening and they're just enjoying a good time in the evening.
Yes.
But one particular time, we went out for a project in Kidera. And they had talked about the Kidera project for a long time because it was an annual event for Rotary.
Kidera is in Eastern
Kidera
Uganda?
in Busoga, in Kamuli.
Okay.
And they had talked about it for a long time. Yeah. It was an annual project, so those who had been in the previous Kideras knew exactly. One, they knew the excitement and the fun that were there, but most importantly, they knew how much impact in terms of service that were there. So for this particular one, they organized and they need resource contribution and so on, which I was happy to support. But to me, the support was never the most important thing until I was in Kidera.
Yes.
The amount, the number of people that came, and the involvement from my colleagues and myself in terms of helping. You know, you do think this is a medical outreach, and so you think it's only doctors.
Yes.
But I saw that our support was coming in from washing the utensils, from sanitizing this, from just recording the patients and things like that. Yes. And I thought, after that weekend, I thought we had done something incredible.
Yeah.
So returning back, I reflected on how much I had contributed in terms of money and reflected on how much had been done. And I thought, actually, if I put that to only the money I contributed, it had nothing. Yeah. Because the fact that I had driven my vehicle, the fact that I had given up my time for that, but most importantly, looking out for those guys, that old gentleman, to make sure that they do not line up, but you move them where they need.
Yes.
Helping out with that young kid who is crying because they have seen the dental kit and, you know, the fear about the dentist and things like that. To me, was all that mattered most. Yeah. And I never, ever stopped going to Kidera because of that. Yeah. And I keep telling people that probably that shaped my Rotary journey up to today.
Wow.
Over that years, I got to know many more ways that we can be able to support. And I mean, as Rotary, as an organization, we are now 117 years. Our signature program has been the eradication of polio. And when you read about it, 30 plus years ago, when Rotary International set out to deliver a polio-free world to the children of the world, everyone, and I bet guys in World Health Organization thought these guys are crazy.
Yeah, that time.
Yes. And yet now,
it seemed impossible.
Just last polio day, on the 24th of October last year, I was listening to the Director General of World Health Organization, and he was only quoting 4 cases of polio last year.
The entire world.
The entire world. So we are this close. But to me, it's not about, it's about the dedicated force, men and women, who beyond contributing monetary terms, they have gone out. They have gone out to look for the children. They have carried the vaccines. They have mobilized communities and things like that. And to me, in Uganda was declared polio-free probably 10 years ago. Yeah. And we've maintained that. Yeah. But it has been a consulted and dedicated effort from Rotarians, from different health care professionals and so on. Yeah. And to me, that is generosity. Yes. That is giving without even attaching yet monetary value, but yet giving something long term. And building a future. Exactly.
If anything, to secure the future.
Exactly.
That is fantastic, Xavier. And from what I pick from what you're saying is 2 things. One is that for you, generosity is a way of life. It was something that you grew up, you didn't even think twice about. And I think that is very true about many African cultures, that it's just about giving. And sometimes the challenge is that we over-normalize it. It becomes so mundane to us that it's no longer an issue. And then when we receive from outside is when we see it as big. When your neighbor comes to give you a portion of their meal, you're thinking this is their responsibility anyway. But then when a foreigner carries a pot of gold and brings it to you, you're thinking, wow, this one has gone out of their way. So I think you're right. Generosity is a way of life. And connecting that to Rotary, I think what I pick from what you're saying is Rotary is generosity in action. That act of going out into the community, identifying where the need is, and being able to support it, that is where the generosity lies. And I think that is an amazing way of connecting the two, Rotary and generosity. But let's not kid ourselves that even the eradication of polio required a lot of fundraising. And Rotary's fundraising is hailed to be one of the most dynamic. Could you let us know how Rotary raises money, Rotary in Uganda, to be able to do some of these amazing things?
Yes, most certainly. And Malcolm, you bring it out right, that there's a level of fundraising. And probably I would define it. Who are the Rotarians? Rotarians are community leaders. They are business leaders.
Yeah.
They are professional leaders. So they are people with the right contacts.
Yeah.
But we also know that most importantly, what makes them Rotarians is the fact that beyond their leadership in community, beyond their position in community,
yes,
they are service-minded community, professional, or civic leaders.
Yes.
So it's that aspect of service that makes the whole difference.
Okay.
And so for us in Uganda, when we talk about Rotary in Uganda, the resources that we've mastered in terms of the eradication of polio is way beyond just the money that we've done. Because what we've done is, one, is to use our contacts, our connections, to ensure that we rally the population to participate in this. And I'll tell you one thing is that, and I was talking to the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Health, and she acknowledges the importance of Rotarians and the effectiveness of Rotarians in community mobilization.
Yes.
So there's that inherent value that we bring on board beyond the financial muscle. That Rotarians, without being paid, and so they're offering their time that in another NGO, in another organization, that time will be monetized. And they go out there, participate fully, and that's what makes us different from other service organizations. Our classification, utilization of our classification, utilization of our skills to fully be part of the solution provided makes it easier to reach out to the community. And so when it came to polio, a couple of years ago, we had National Immunization Days, NIDs, and the Ministry of Health would work with Rotary clubs around the country just to mobilize communities. And they found out that the way we talk to the communities, because of course when you go as Minister of Health, the communities are going to expect allowances and so on, and it's a different story altogether. So to me, I feel that is where it begins. But also, there are so many organizations, there are so many people with deeper pockets, friends, people of our acquaintances who are simply not Rotarians, but they want to help. And that's where Rotary comes in, that we have the unique skill of convincing people with the resources, corporate organizations. So because they have seen what we can do, they can fully entrust us with their resources to be able to do that task for them. And to us, I think it only widens the network of people being generous and solving the problems that we are dealing with. And so that's what has happened. I remember that we were dealing with the polio eradication, and it could be Coca-Cola, it could be Pepsi-Cola. They provide the drinks. It could be one with the transportation, and they provide the transport. So everyone contributes and makes the whole process much more smooth. And this has even been happening. Recently, we were involved in the COVID, ensuring that everyone gets immunized and so on. But it was a consulted effort of bringing all stakeholders together. And the Ministry of Health earmarking out Rotary to be the key coordinator to bring these stakeholders together.
Wow.
But to me, the most important thing that at least then we can be able to cause people to be able to contribute and solve a challenge.
Yeah.
If they don't have the time to go out there, then the Rotary spirit
Good.
helps us to
Lead
do
it.
that. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much, Xavier, for sharing that bit. I think that puts a lot of how Rotary is perceived in perspective. You have emphasized even so much more than the monetary contribution, the networks, the depth in connection, and the time that Rotarians give to be able to bring about the transformative change in the communities that they are serving. And that certainly is not something that is seen everywhere.
For sure. And to me, I think that is the cornerstone of why Rotary is strong in Uganda. I'll tell you one thing, that Rotary in Uganda probably the strongest on the African continent.
Wow.
And it will be ranking in the top 10 in the world.
Yes.
And everyone, all Rotary leaders that come in this country will keep asking, what is unique
Yes.
about that?
Yes.
And probably we've done it right. But it's come a long way.
Yes.
We've had our turmoils
Yes.
in the past during the 70s, and it was almost banned. It was operating undercover.
Undercover, yes.
And then we come to a level where it was predominantly maybe high class, so to say. Really, you needed to be a lawyer. You needed to put on a suit, a jacket, and a necktie, and things like that.
Yes.
But I think we found out that generosity, and indeed solving community problems, is about being part and parcel of the community.
It knows no class.
Yeah, it knows no class. Feeling what is in the community and dealing with it.
Yes.
And so we went out, and indeed, the Rotary world over has had to adjust to that.
Yes.
Because we identified that probably you'll be able to be in touch with the community better when you are representative of the community, when you feel what the community is going through.
Yes.
Or when you go to the community and then they are able to open up to you.
Yeah.
Then you can deal with the issues
However
there.
much money you have, if you don't connect with the community,
Then
you don't make any headway.
Yeah, I mean, there have been so many interventions and they end up as a white elephant.
Yes.
Because you thought this is the issue in the community,
Yeah.
and you are providing a solution to which something not urgent.
Not it at all.
So we've gotten a long way. But what else that we've done is that we've been practical in addressing issues that concern society. And so I think that's where corporate, government, and international organizations have trusted us. And they look out for us. They know that when Rotary is in the mix, dealing with a challenge,
Yes.
then you are going to find a solution. Then you are going to get to the bottom of it.
Yes.
And that's what has given us the credibility. That's why it is easier for us to mobilize resources, to bring on board corporate organizations, to bring on board different partners, because they know we've been there, we've done it right.
Yes.
But also we've been a force to reckon with in terms of supporting Rotary causes. There's the Rotary Foundation.
Yes.
And the Rotary Foundation is the World Bank of Rotary. Is our financing arm.
Yes.
But we mobilize those resources, those finances.
Okay.
And having been a governor, I looked at the statistics, how much we give as a district. My district then was Uganda and Tanzania.
Yeah.
And I compared it with other really deep pocket countries.
Yes.
You could see that we are beating way above our weight.
Yes.
We are actually contributing something substantial. And that has also helped us that we are getting something substantial. We are probably also among the top 10 countries that receive resources from the foundation.
Yeah.
Why? Because we are in the top that give to the foundation. Yes, our per capita cannot be as big as those of the Western world and so on. But if you put it in relativity, I'm a statistician, and I always want to compare mangoes with mangoes and apples with apples, then we are doing something great. But that has also helped us, that we ensure that even when we donate to the foundation, when we receive from the Rotary Foundation, because the Rotary Foundation was created to cause impact around the world.
Could you just share with us a bit how the foundation works itself?
The Rotary Foundation, which was started in 1917, so now just slightly above 100 years, it was started with the principle of creating good in the world. And how it operates, that it mobilizes resources from Rotary members, Rotarians like you and me, and then friends of Rotary. Friends of Rotary, like, it could be a corporate organization, it could be Bill and Melinda Gates, it could be any other foundation. People who trust that when you donate to the Rotary Foundation, they will actually utilize your resources to the best to reach the ultimate person. And indeed, over the years, I think in the last 15 years, our foundation has been rated with a 4-star. In actual fact, with 99.7% among the charity, using the World Charity Navigator, among the charities in the US and so on. And normally when they give you those parameters, they are looking at the levels of accountability, looking at the levels at which your funding goes to the ultimate beneficiary. They are looking at the, things like that. So by ranking you that, everyone will want to come and participate with you. Of course, without mentioning, but there are cases where you are mobilizing $1,000 and probably 700 is going to operational costs, and so the beneficiary is only getting 300. That is not.
So it's taken into consideration as well.
Exactly, and so when we raise funds, when our friends contribute funds to the foundation, they are then put in a pool, and Rotary districts around the world, Rotary clubs around the world, they are given a right to apply to identify needs in their communities, look for support from the foundation to complement what they have mobilized. So in a way, it continues to help us to mobilize resources locally, and then we get additional resources from the foundation. Remember that you also contributed to what is in the foundation, but it helps us. I know just last year we did a project as Rotary Club of Kiwatule, where we contributed probably with our local other clubs probably $15,000, and yet it brought in $150,000. So that multiplier effect, where did it come from? Because there are people in Caribbean, there are people in the USA, but there are people in Nigeria or Kenya, or there are people down in Arua who have contributed, and cumulatively that comes back. So that's how the foundation operates. And we encourage people. And trust me, there are corporate organizations here. There are people of good hearts who are not Rotarians in Uganda here, who have continued to give to the foundation because they know what it means, that the seed that you sow there is going to multiply 1,000-fold. And so that helps us to mobilize. And that has also helped us to rejuvenate and to show the impact of Rotary and to transform communities. For us, I think as Rotarians, any Rotarians will know that it's about transforming the communities. It's not about the money that you give. It's about the number of children that man has educated. It's about the number of pregnant mothers, the number of mothers that have gone out of a health center safe with bouncing babies, and knowing that that child will live to see their 6th birthday. It's about community empowerment. It's about that lady who has been collecting water, walking a distance of 5 kilometers, and now water is less than 500 meters from their home. And therefore they can utilize that time to do more important things that develop the community and develop the family. So it's about that. It's about our peace center. providing a peace center here, providing peace scholars, so that these issues like what we are seeing in Ukraine, in Russia, but discussions like domestic violence and things like that, so that we can have our ambassadors, peace agents, to fuse out these issues.
Yeah.
For us, when that happens, then you know whatever you invested in the foundation is working.
And those are the things that you can't quite put a price on, because however much money you have contributed, like you say, the value is not in there, but in the difference that that money is actually making, and that's where the focus
For sure.
actually should be. You mentioned quite a number of organizations, corporates, even government beseeching Rotary to be a part of their plans. What would you say is Rotary's currency? What is the currency on which Rotary trades and is able to attract this kind of support and request for partnership?
I think our currency could be trust.
Yeah.
It's actually embedded right in our core values. Integrity.
Yes.
People believe in us.
Yeah.
It's about action. People know that when a Rotarian says this, they mean that. When the Rotarian sets out to do something, it's going to be done. It's about that level of trust. And it's about the fact that we've cut across all spheres, that we know that there is unity in diversity. And therefore, whatever color of party that you belong to, whatever religion, whatever race you belong to,
Yes.
it's about humanity.
Yeah.
And you need, and very few organizations, they are going to be leaning somewhere. And so you need to find an organization which is way above all that.
Yes.
Because after all, it's about humanity.
Yes.
And I think it has helped us. And over the years, probably the other thing is that they have seen the impact on ground.
Yes.
What we have done with meager resources, because we are not so many Rotarians in Uganda. You'll be surprised. So many people think that we are like a million people in Uganda. Rotarians.
Yes.
We are not even 5,000 Rotarians in Uganda.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Yeah.
But probably why they think it's a million Rotarians in Uganda is the amount of work that has been done is probably much more than what.
Yes.
So you can imagine if only. So that why people trust us, why Minister of Health and government would come and talk to us to deal with issues in medical area. Minister of Education comes and want to partner with us in education-related events. When we go to the Minister of Environment and want to cause a change in ensuring that we protect our environment and so on, it's because they know if these guys, few as they are, they can cause this much impact. If we can work with them, probably the impact will be bigger.
Yeah.
And to me, I think that is something good.
Yeah.
And something that we need to continue as a ride on. Hopefully we can get more hands on the deck.
Yes.
Then we could make it much bigger.
Even bigger.
But I think to me it's about that.
About the trust.
Yeah.
And trust is certainly that unseen bit in generosity that allows the giving to keep flowing. Because if you give and it reaches the intended beneficiary, you're happy to give again and give again. But you did start by mentioning about how generosity is a way of life for you as you grew up, but also in our African cultures. And whereas that is the truth, there's also another truth that we have been discouraged from touting our giving, from announcing the giving, from celebrating loudly the giving, because again, it's a way of life. It isn't an event. It is a culture. It is just who we are. However, the need to announce, to celebrate, to recognize has grown, and I don't know if Rotary has had that experience where it has been a bit coy to announce, to be loud about the giving, about the work that it does, about the need to fundraise even more, and whether there's been a transformation for Rotary in Uganda in that sense.
Malcolm, You bring out a very important point because I will tell you that Rotary in Uganda and Rotary globally has been probably fallen in the same trap.
Yes.
As Rotarians, we were happy to do things like the way it is in the Bible, that your left hand should not know what your right hand has given. And so we were happy to solve challenges and keep quiet about them. But we found out over time that is detrimental to us. One, you do not attract many partners, and therefore you do not do much more that you would have done. And so in the recent past, we've gone out to be intentional in terms of documenting, but in terms of communicating our impact, our generosity in its entirety. In the past, growing up as a Rotarian, we've given, over the weekend, the Rotary Club of Kiwatule, or there's so many clubs, they go out and do a medical camp. I just told you an example in Kidera, and maybe we are 70 road tractors. Then we've raised this so much resources in terms of money, but there are people who have contributed in kind. They have given us water, they have given us medical, whatever. But when we are reporting, you report only the money in cash.
On the money, yes.
And probably there's much more. Our contribution in terms of time, in terms of fuel, in terms of the in-kind contribution and so on, is probably 300, 400, 500 times more than the money that we've put in. And I think when we report that way, money only, then we've not done justice to what actually we just experienced over that weekend.
The generosity in its entirety.
Okay, if only we could talk about the generosity, even from the fact that I talk to this young mother and she lives feeling that she has a life ahead of her.
Yes.
That is something, if I only put value to it, it's huge.
It's huge.
If I could only have provided that the fact that I went through a career guidance and I shaped the future of this child, that is something huge. So there's much more than that. And I keep seeing this in our African culture. We mobilize whether weddings or funerals, someone has died, and you see how much everyone pinches in for a send-off, a dignified send-off. And someone brings matoke and so on. But the only people they announce are the people who have brought, even the person who has contributed 1,000 shillings could be announced, and someone who has brought 5 bunches of matoke not announced.
Yes.
We need to change the perspective, because I think as Africans, we're more generous. I sometimes get actually disturbed how low we take ourselves. Because there's a lot that we do out there. When you look at the way we've just gone through COVID, when you look at the support system within community, looking out for that who doesn't have, for that particular household who don't have what to eat and things like that. I mean, it's an incredible feeling. Being able to share out what you have. I have rice, but I know my neighbor may not have, and things like that. But no one documents that. And you know what? If that is done by someone from out there, it's going to be all over the news. So probably
have a
that
TikTok video to go with it. And
exactly. So that is something that we need as Rotary, as an organization, is something that we are now coming out to be intentional in terms of publicizing. I'm not sure we are there yet. How I wish we were even 50% there. I think it would be much more out in public. But at least the journey has started. And I hope that people get to appreciate. I was actually, last week I was in Comm-UNITY doing some water project, and we are going to put in place a huge water reservoir for a community that is what the Comm-UNITY is part of the cattle corridor, and so it is water stressed. And this particular reservoir is going to supply water to over 4 communities. But it's going to But it's going to, when we were there, we had two Rotarians one from Canada and one from Scotland. And but the partnership here is between USAID and Rotary International and so on. And these Rotarians from Uganda and so on, we've put in all the resources, technical expertise and so on too.
Yes.
But it was surprising that everyone who stood, the RDC, the cow and so on,
Yes.
they just look at the two white faces. And
That's where the focus is.
yeah.
No, we're laughing
But
about
it's
it,
a cultural thing.
It's sad. Yeah.
It's sad, but it's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
It's something that, and I like what you've just started.
Yeah.
That we need to start communicating, that we believe that people need to appreciate how much, as Africans, we are offering in terms of support system, in terms of generosity, in terms of supporting each other for for the things that we carry out.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a lot. And it's only in Africa that someone will be able to survive and survive freely without. You hardly find someone that he can starve.
You're certainly not.
Yeah. So, true, Rotary in Uganda, and probably that is what is giving us the edge out there, out of different from the other African countries. But we can do better.
Yeah.
So we hope that we can, this should start more of the conversation to document much bigger than just the monetary contribution. Yeah.
Thank you so much. You've really hit the nail on the head right there, because that's what this forum is about. It's about sharing the stories around philanthropy, believing that even Africans can be philanthropists and that our giving counts, our giving matters. Even if it is not the monetary one, there are several other forms in which we give naturally as a way of life. We give a lot within our communities, within our families, and Rotary in Uganda is doing just that as well. I will turn to you for a parting shot now, and just asking, what is your clarion call for our viewers, our listeners, to be able to drum up more generosity and like you say, the documentation and heralding what we do that comes almost naturally for us?
My parting call, and I will relate it to a story that I never cease to share.
Yeah.
This is a story about a young boy called Patrick from Kibera slums.
Yes.
You probably have heard about it. Patrick Odera from Kibera. And this is a young boy when we were then a bigger district and working with fellow Rotarians from Nairobi. We go to visit them and we are seeing this young boy move around us. And but we were inquisitive. And probably we all moved with our Rotary hearts that day. And so we talked to our Kenyan counterparts to follow up this young boy who kept hovering around us.
Yes.
I'll cut the story short. When they went back to find out about this young boy, he had lost her father. The mother could not afford school, so he had dropped out. They end up in the biggest slum on the African continent. But he wanted to go back to school. So we try out something. We bring him to Uganda and we place him in a school just to try out one term. And I'm talking generosity because I'm talking about the African generosity. Our friends in Kenya, they identify a young boy, they try out something, they even get him on a bus to Uganda. Ugandans will receive him, we open up our home to him, take him to school. We had wanted him to be here for one term. He started in S2. That term ended up being a series of terms until he completed his S6.
Yes.
He ended up being the fourth best student in S6. Wow. He left Uganda with a first-class law degree.
Wow.
And he's a practicing lawyer in Nairobi. To me, every time I think about cases like that, every time I think about a case like when we were doing a medical outreach in Sese Islands and there was this young mother who could have lost her life because there were no doctors on ground. It was a miracle that my president, current president, Brenda, and a couple of other doctors were in the islands, and they did something incredible. They went out, did a C-section with minimal
supplies. Yes.
And that mother and the boy, now 8 years, called Rotary, is existing. So if only people could know that generosity is about utilizing what you have at any particular time to solve, to provide something, a better life for someone in need.
Yes.
And that's all.
That's it.
Because the blessings that God has given us, we've not paid for them. The only way that we can thank God for the many blessings He gives to you, to anyone watching us out there, is to simply look out for someone in need and bless them. And give and solve whatever little. And trust me, there is nothing little in terms of giving. This is one song I've been telling people. Yes. There's nothing little. It takes less than $50 to immunize a child against polio. But just imagine the impact if that child ever got polio. So, if you want to know the magnitude of your $50, look at it from the perspective of the mental whatever, the cost to looking after polio child, and so many things
the cost
along
of the family,
exactly,
the community and the nation.
That's when you know that even donating $1 is very important.
Yeah.
That donating $10 is very important. But even just mobilizing a community to go for vaccinating children, you are as good as someone who has contributed that $1.
True.
So it's a whole range of things.
Yes.
I think it starts with the heart. And that's what Rotarians have done, is that they have offered themselves to be there to solve challenges in the communities. And what better way? When we talk generosity, it's about that. It's about not only giving your resources in terms of money, it's giving your resources in terms of time, in terms of intellect, in terms of everything. And my parting shot is that every one of us can do this. And the other parting shot is that we need to be bringing out this much more. Things like this discussion should get out much more, so that we can show the rest of the world that after all, we've been there and we've been doing this for many, many more years.
Thank you, Xavier. That's a perfect way to bring a curtain on our episode, believing that we've been able to share how Rotary brings generosity to the fore. And I think that the thread that has run through this entire conversation is how generosity is a way of life, and towards the end there, how we need to be able to share more, to talk more, to put it out there, and remind everyone out there, our viewers, our listeners, that there's so much more that you can do, wherever you are, however you are. There's something that you can be able to do to improve the community around you and be able to share that you have been able to achieve that. Thank you so much to our guest, Rotarian Xavier Sentamu, a past district governor of Rotary in East Africa. And thank you to our listeners, to our viewers on YouTube, for joining us for yet another episode, which is brought to you every Thursday on the Comm-UNITY podcast, courtesy of CivSource Africa. Thank you once again. Karibu sana.